All right, we'll be looking at the book of Genesis, and today's class is a very unique class. So, as for any people that are here, my interpretation of this class, apart from the notes, I believe will ring a bell. Sometimes you hear a Christian would say that there are prophecies hanging over my life, and yet I'm struggling. You will hear believers say, God spoke to me himself. God said to me, God said, I will prosper you. In fact, God told me that this very, very coming month, you will be pregnant. God said it 10 times. I heard it. He said, Gbenga, Gbenga, don't let me say you'll be pregnant now. But I think you get the idea. That God spoke to me. Not only did I hear it, there is a confirmation from 2 or 3 other sources. And a lot of people, the feelings of my spirit, everything seemed to be working towards the fulfillment of God's word for my life. I am so sure that God had spoken. And then this particular person wakes up the next day, the word of God does not come to pass. Wakes up the day after that, still remains in the same spot. 1 year, remains in the same spot. 2 years, and then the person becomes frustrated. Oh God, why did you not answer my prayer? I've heard the prophecy. Is it that I'm not waging war with prophecy? Maybe the enemy. It must be the enemy. Somebody must be behind my matter. Because God spoke. In fact, I was just walking on the road that day when I met a man of God who called me and he said, I see before you. Oh, promotion. I see before you. Marriage. I see before you. Husband. I see before you. Money. I see before you a new house. I see you. And everything that this person said, nothing has come to pass. And yet you know that the promises you received are of God. That the promises were not fake. There was a resonation in your spirit that which you have received is true. Welcome to the life of Jacob, the man upon whom the promise of God was hanging, but a man who couldn't actualize this promise because he was a sensual man who was living only in the flesh. Spiritual things are spiritual. Physical things are physical. The people that suffer the most in this world are believers who mix the two together. You know, when you meet people who are not spiritual, people who are carnal, they want to make money, so they would go all out. Okay, I want to make money. What can I do? Practical step. I'm going to be sleeping around. That's what my mates are doing. In fact, I know a woman that told her daughter that, see your friend. Your friend will go out and she will come back every weekend. She will come back with money. She pays her rent. And you are here. You have body like this. Go and do what your friend is doing. The lady told me herself that my mother was telling me to go and be doing what my friend is doing. And she knows that my friend was always going to hotels to meet people. That's carnal people. So carnal people, they would assess a situation and then they're very pragmatic. Okay, how do I get this fixed? What do I need to do? You know, quite recently, not very long ago, I was in Lagos. I was lodged in a hotel at around 12 midnight to 1. The hotel management sent somebody to come and meet me in my room to have a discussion. They had 2 ladies that came around looking for customers, and then they were stranded. And the hotel authority shouldn't see them around. But the security people were afraid that if they go out at that time, they may get hurt. So they came to seek my counsel. So I said, oh, okay, no problem. I'll give up my room for them. So I had to go downstairs and sit. And I told the people to take them. So in the next morning, after I finished my 30 minutes with GSW on Telegram, I went up. They were dressed. Then I asked them, what are you doing here? Then one of them said, I was going for my NYC. I didn't have money for tickets. So you can see the practical way that people of the world think. She needs money to buy plane tickets to Adamawa. She decided that, okay, this Friday I was going to go out. I was going to look for somebody to sleep with. I'm going to make the money. See, practical people in the world. And so because of that, it will seem to many as if the people of this world, the children of this world, are wiser than the children of the kingdom. Because the children of the world would always face a situation head on, and they will find every practical means to solve it. It doesn't matter if they have to kill anybody. Many of us understand, like in Nigeria, the political history, how many people died because of their ambition, slaughtered on the altar of ambition, simply because some other people wanted the same thing that they wanted. It is how carnal people think. If they have to do anything fetish to give them advantage, they will do it. If they have to bribe, carnal people do not think twice. They will bribe. Whatever they have to do to get out of a jam, carnal people will do it. And look at Laban. So we saw that Laban was in a jam. He had two daughters. He found a way to make sure that he profited off giving them to Jacob. Now Jacob, also being carnal, accepted the two women, continued to work for Laban, and then he began to have children. And as he was having children, you would see the carnality of his thoughts. So he evolved. The evolution of Joseph, he didn't evolve as a spiritual man as Abraham did. This is the example of somebody who is in a mess, but continue to survive, continue to use his wits, continue to struggle. And this also affected his entire household. There was rancor in the house. His first wife was fighting and contending to be loved, even though she knew from the beginning that she was not his choice, and that they didn't have a conversation before they started having sex. You have to imagine the audacity of Leah. Okay, so your father told you that, you are getting married, go and dress up. And you say, who am I getting married to? Your father says, you are getting married to Jacob. And you say, no, that's my sister's husband. You know how much you love my sister. Your father said, see, unless you want to be on the shelf, you better marry him. You will find a way to make him love you. And Leah pursued a man who didn't even like her, who had no attraction to her, pursued this love all the days of her life. Rachel, the woman that Jacob actually loved, was not treated fairly, to state the fact, because there was only one man available that they could regard to as a kinsman that both of them could marry. And their father could have made Leah marry somebody else. But then the status of Jacob was royalty. He was Abraham's descendant. He was not just any man. And to say that they were married to him helps that family. He didn't want them to marry just anybody. They wanted to marry into the king. That was why Isaac also sent him to Laban so that he could get away from Laban. So it is important that they do that connection, that political arrangement, where they will marry each other and keep the wealth within the family, and keep the connection within the family, and keep their lineage unpolluted by outsiders, so to say. But then there was only one man. How could Rachel, how would we expect her to feel? Of course, she will feel unhappy. She will feel scorned. In fact, later in the scriptures, when Moses was writing the laws, Moses wrote it clearly that no man should allow his son to marry two daughters of the same parent. And you know the excuse he gave? He said, so that home will not be like the home of Leah and Rachel. So even in history, in retrospect, they all knew quite clearly that if a man marrying two sisters was not a good thing. it will create unnecessary strife, rancor, discord, enmity, jealousy in that family. But at that time, Jacob, well, because Jacob being a more matured guy, if I ask all of anybody here, what should Jacob have done? The mature thing to do, sincerely, was that immediately after he married Leah, he should have said, okay, I've married Leah, I'm not marrying Rachel again. That is what a mature man who wanted to have a settled life will do. He will forgo love for responsibility. Many of us here, we've done it. You may not see it that way, but you've done it. You had a choice to make between a guy or a girl, and maybe your education or going abroad, or maybe you are not ready to get married yet and the person is ready to get married and the person is bringing pressure. Many of us here, especially from Nigeria here, we've had to forgo love for responsibility, for common sense. We've had to do it and we didn't die. We did it and we didn't die. So, and they will still continue to do it because that is the nature of life. You meet somebody you love, but then you realize that, hey, I'm not ready to get married and this person is ready. Then you let the person move on until you are ready. So, and if you are married, maybe you married, I know a medical doctor whose father said, oh, you are my only son. I don't have any other son. I want you to marry early. He married at the age of 21. Started having children immediately. Went to medical school at 24. Graduated at almost 30-something. By the time he graduated, he already had 5 children. And then this brother started sleeping around. And my mom, one day spoke to him. He's late now. We were neighbors then in the bathroom. My mom, now, we didn't even know he was married until one day his wife and children came. Said they came from Lagos. They said, so this man is married, and we always see all sorts of ladies in his house, as in this man was a sniper. And now we saw his wife, we saw the children. So my mom had to call him, what's wrong with you? Why are you? And then he said, no, my father married that one for me because he wanted to be happy. He wanted to have grandchildren. But I wasn't ready. She's not educated. She's this person, hairstylist. My daddy opened the shop for her in Lagos. My daddy did everything, but more or less my daddy's wife, because my dad married her for me. I am choosing. I'm looking at my own wife now. I want to pick a wife to marry now. Everybody was like, well, are you okay? Like after 5 children, he still didn't see that woman as his wife because his father made the arrangement when he was quite young. And so responsibility has come, but he was still looking out for love. Eventually, it was that love he was looking for, that somebody did whatever for him and he died. But if he had been a practical person, he would have chosen responsibility over love. This is the first lesson I want everybody here to learn. Responsibility must always be given consideration over feelings. Responsibility must be given consideration over feelings. There are so many of us in our practical sense here on this call that agree with me, because out of your experience, you've gone through the same thing. You've met a man that you like, but you know that this man is not responsible, and you walked away. You said, no. This does not align with the kind of man I want to build a future with. You must always put responsibility ahead of feelings. Jacob didn't do that. Jacob took responsibility for the first wife and then proceeded to pursue his feelings for Rachel by marrying her as a second wife. And of course, because he was a man that couldn't take decisions to safeguard his own future, the consequences were crazy. And then when these women began to have their rivalry, so now he has made the mistake of marrying 2 sisters. And then the 2 sisters began their rivalry by trying to outdo each other in childbearing. Rachel couldn't have a child, and Rachel gave up one of her ladies in waiting. And Jacob again did not say, oh no. But Abraham made this mistake. Abraham made this mistake. Why do we, let's see, let's say Abraham didn't make the mistake, I would have said, okay, it's fine. But I saw somebody who made this mistake. It's my grandfather. He made this mistake. Look at how his life turned out to be. You know, as a person, personally, I've made decisions on that basis before. You know, when I was young and people will say in your family, all the first male children, and this is their trend, this is their trend, this is their trend. I said, no, I will not follow that trend. I will not follow that trend, because the reason they came before you is so that you can learn. But some of us, I've heard people who will say, my father married 5. So what is there? And they too will want to follow the footsteps of their father, not realizing that a wrong course is not a course to emulate. We must always emulate right paths and right courses. Once it is wrong, we should keep away from it. This is true and this is practical. So this is the second lesson for today. You must not say because your father or your parents did something, then you want to do it, especially if that thing is not something that is worthy of emulation. Jacob proceeded to do what Isaac didn't do. When Rebecca was waiting to have a child, Rebecca waited for almost 20 years. Isaac did not marry another wife. Isaac did not do anything close to that. He was, in his own way, he was a very faithful man. And now Jacob, despite having children already, was everything they gave him. It was just lambanoing. Were just taking it. So they gave him 2 ladies. It was acting as if he couldn't say no. He took the 2 sisters. Then the sisters also now gave him their ladies in waiting. And he took the ladies in waiting too. And it was just, so you see how a sensually driven man lives his life. Day-to-day pleasure. All he wants to do, eat, have sex, go out, come in. His life was not in any way lived to please God, to honor God. He had nothing like that in mind. All his epignosis was to take whatever he can take out of life. And whatever was happening to him, it was like a victim in his own life. He didn't take charge of his life, didn't take control of it. He was a bad negotiator too. As crafty as he thought he was, Jacob was a very bad negotiator. He said Laban changed his wages 10 times. If somebody has cheated you once, cheated you twice, and you let him continue for 10 times, it means there's something wrong with your negotiating skills. You shouldn't allow that. Because you have bargaining chip, you have Laban's daughters, you have his grandchildren. They are going to feed. You are going to take care of your own household. So Laban has no right to keep cheating you until you are so poor that you have to be crying out and be saying, you have cheated me this, that will I not provide for my own household? So you see how that is, that he has a household he couldn't cater for, and yet he continued to have more children. When he had Judah, many of us don't realize that the name Judah, it means praise, really. But in antecedent, in how the lineage came, Judah was not supposed to be very prominent. It's another thing to look out for. How God would allow grace to escape some people so that they can settle on some other people. The firstborn, the secondborn, the thirdborn lost their place due to their own character defect and positioning and decision making. Judah eventually would emerge as the one that would be recognized by God as the official firstborn, the one that has the authority of rulership out of the 12. And this happened as a result of the rancor in the home. The children of the other women, they didn't behave like the children of the original wives. They were violent. Because, if you have 4 wives, the tendency not to pay attention to some children and then to pay attention to some children is very much a possibility. And especially if you don't love their mothers, the ones whose mother you love is the one you will care for really. And Jacob showed this in his dealing with Rachel's children, especially after Rachel died and was saddled with Joseph and Benjamin to take care of. Now, when the story of Jacob was going to change was when Laban came to sit with him, and Laban said, "Oh, you've prospered me. I recognize that it is your presence in my house that has made me this wealthy in the last 20 plus years. And it is time to give you your inheritance so that you can become a man of your own." They will say that he wanted to start business for him. He wanted to kick him off in business and settle him. That's what they used to say, or God settle him. So he wanted to settle Jacob. And Jacob knew that this man had always, when people want to cheat you, they will say that, "Oh, I'm doing this for you," only for you to later realize that they didn't really do it for you. They said that to encourage you to work hard. And then when the gains came, they changed the goalposts. Laban had been doing that. So this time Jacob decided, no, I wasn't going to do that. So I'm going to talk for 2 minutes about the strategy. When you are in the world, or when you want to use carnal knowledge to settle problems, oftentimes we evolve a strategy. All of us do it, and that's the truth. You notice that your salary is not good enough to take you through the month, and you have been hearing that there is an extra stream of income that has to come from somewhere. And then most of the time, a believer who is working for somebody will have to find a way to collect more money from the employer, either legally or semi-legally, to buttress or to augment what is already earning. And these are some of the practices that we do that makes us very similar to Jacob in behavior. It wasn't as if Jacob didn't trust God. Remember that he met God on his way to Laban's house. But the prayers of his father, the vision he saw, the vow he made at Bethel, you will expect that when he got to his destination, he should quickly prosper and be rich and have everything. But because he was doing everything carnally, he didn't prosper. The prophecies kept hanging, and he caught a very frustrated picture. And as a result of that, he began to look for means to break the yoke of poverty off his neck, and which was what led to the way he negotiated with Laban for the speckled and the spotted animals. Laban tried to cheat him, but he found a way to ensure that when the animals mated, they were facing, they mated at a particular location, and had already did a sort of scientific, inspired scientific exercise to ensure that he got the deal that he wanted. When he got the deal that he wanted, he was happy. But he knew Laban. He knew that when Laban comes to visit, because he puts 3 days journey between him and Laban, so that Laban's flock and his own can be separate, and he can develop at his own pace. Laban's children took the other animals, but he took the ones that was given to him. And as they began to breed, he realized that his strategy worked. But he knew that Laban will come back and Laban will change the goalpost again. So he decided that he wasn't going to wait for Laban to do that. He was going to go back home with everything God has given him, or everything that he had earned after 20 plus years of servitude. Now, there are 2 things that I love about the end of this story. The Bible said Jacob set out, giving himself some hours advantage. He set out with his family, and they began to move away from Laban. He first had a family meeting with his children, with his wife, and his wife said, Oh, we are your property now. We are your we are your property now. Take us anywhere you want to take us. So he took them. When Laban heard, Laban began to pursue him. Now, this is what I love about it. Despite the fact that Jacob lived his life in a very carnal way, God appeared to Laban and told Laban that, hey, the person you are pursuing is not your enemy. He is justified for what he has done. When you get to him, don't say good to him, don't say evil. Just keep your mouth shut. Do you know that one of the things that I love the most about that is the fact that I've seen it happen to many believers also nowadays in practical terms, that they will get themselves in a spot of bother or in trouble, and God will rescue them, despite the fact that their story had some question marks. Somehow, God will just come through for them. But God coming through for them is not an endorsement of wrong. It wasn't as if God was saying, Jacob, keep cheating. God wasn't saying what Jacob did was right. God was preserving Jacob because of the preordained destiny, the path that God has set for him, which he must follow. Several times, some of us will get away with some things. And then when we get away with it, we'll think it is because we are smart. And later we'll notice that we don't get away with things anymore. And somebody will say, what happened? Say, I ran out of luck. No, God was saving you and trying to make you see that, hey, you are following the wrong path, really. But I want you to see that you can still come out of this thing so that your life will not be totally messed up. But many believers don't see that until it is almost too late, when everything will now become emergency and they have to be running scatter and praying and fasting and running to mountains and going to prophets, and then they will say, what happened? Say, I did this. Why did you do that? And they won't be able to talk. And this is basically because they live their life like Jacob. But in Jacob's case, by the time Laban caught up with him, Laban couldn't hurt him. So Laban sat with him. Laban said, why did you do what you did? And he said, see, I've left home for a long time. I have parents at home. I want to see my parents. I want my parents to see my grandchildren, to see my children. I want my father to see my children before he dies. And every time I've been here, you've not allowed me to make progress. And Laban said, okay, no problem. Your children are my children. Your wives are my children. You have to make a covenant with me that you will not maltreat my children, because now I can no longer protect them. You are taking them away. So I don't want to hear that after you took my children and my wife away, that my daughters away, that you are going to now maltreat them. You are going, no. Make a covenant with me. So Laban and Jacob made a covenant. The one thing, the last thing I want to mention was the issue of Rachel and the idol she took. You see, it is important that all of us here, being Christians, ensure that we set our children on a particular path, the path of righteousness, and that we show them how to walk in it. Rachel could have lived to be very old because he took that idol. And when Laban wanted to accuse Jacob, Laban leveraged upon the missing idol as the reason why he came to attack Jacob. Jacob denied, and Jacob said, if the idol is with anybody, let the person die, not knowing that it was his beloved wife that took the idol. Eventually, in childbirth, some months later, Rachel died. The consequences of our action, sometimes they are far-reaching. We should consider that as we do things, so that we will not, as a result of our own carelessness, put other people in trouble, and as a result of that, they will not put trouble on us. You can't always set people up like that and expect that to get away with it. What she did was very wrong, because God didn't want an idol in the camp. Your husband did not worship idols. You have no business taking that idol. And even after her husband made that vow, she didn't confess about it. She didn't make amends so that her husband can turn it around and perhaps bless her. So this is the evolution of Jacob. Before he became Israel, they showed us a picture of what his life looked like. And his life looked exactly like the life of a believer who is not working with the Holy Spirit, who is using carnal knowledge, who is led by the flesh, and as a result of that was walking from calamity to calamity and living a sensual life. I'm going to see us again by God's grace. Maybe Pastor Ayosh will teach next week. It's likely that this time I will not be in Nigeria, but if wherever I am, if I can, I'll take the class. But if I cannot, Pastor Ayosh will take it. Good evening, everybody. God bless you. I hope somebody has been blessed.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
If you are blessed, glory.
Glory.